Hey everybody, it's Ross here with Northern Technology Services, and welcome back to another month of Ross's Corner. And wow, okay, all right. So first off, this was our 10th year anniversary, and it's been a lot of reflecting on what got us here over the last 10 years. And we're just grateful, super grateful for all of our partners, all of our clients, all the businesses that we've had the ability to help serve and be of service to. And this last year or two has just been super fun and exciting. We've done a lot with helping a lot of people get moved over to using the cloud within Tune and SharePoint, and really noticing a trend as more businesses are starting to invest more into technology and realizing that, hey, this needs to be a priority as we keep moving forward, as we want businesses, and we want our current businesses, we want our current nonprofits, and we want them to still be here and prospering and serving the missions that they have 10 years from now, even 20 years from now, and so forth. So there's been a lot of buzz and a lot of activity and things like that. AI is everywhere now. We're hearing about it more and more and more and more. And I mean, we're getting a little closer to being in the Matrix. Now, tinfoil hats maybe get a little tighter. Jokes aside, AI is being used by more businesses than ever, and it is definitely something to be aware of. McKinsey report actually did some statistics, and AI is now in about 78% of businesses. So 78% of companies are already using AI in at least some part of the business. Last year, that number was 55%. And we're not just talking big tech firms, Silicon Valley, things like that anymore. This is businesses of all shapes and sizes, nonprofits of all shapes and sizes now. Obviously, some of the biggest growth is within the IT sector. I know we have done a lot with working out where we can implement AI internally, within things to kind of help with KB articles, troubleshooting issues, kind of so on and so forth, as well as just kind of a general automation and trying to find ways we can automate certain tasks and things to limit an additional head if need to. Another big hot topic, and it is a big thing, and this is something, and actually just recently we just got done kind of going through this with a client, file organization and structure. So this case, they had one big drive that had all these like folders in it. Yeah, and I mean, each folder kind of had limits of who had what and where and how, but things were kind of like all over the place. There wasn't really a common general easy way to sort this out. So kind of going through and all right, so we know we're moving this off of a server environment. We're going to move this into SharePoint with Teams. So how can we structure this so it's appropriate for the right parties and the right people that are present to this? I mean, because like we found stuff where some people really didn't need to have access to it. And going through there, and I know, and I've been doing a few videos and a few talks on this. I know we did like a podcast episode for this too as well. Talking about file folder structure and kind of going through, and don't overthink it, keep it simple, but getting away from final doc this, making sure that your folder structure kind of goes in and plays out correctly the way it's supposed to be. And fun tech tip too, outside of just working with files and folder structures, using, even like doing things like organizing your email, utilizing flagged emails to create like to-do lists and things like that in Microsoft To Do. That's built-in functionality that's there and that's capable to kind of help make things easier. It's these tools are becoming more powerful. They're becoming more prevalent, and there's so much stuff. And I keep finding this more and more. Even there's so much stuff baked in with your Microsoft 365 subscription, besides just email, besides just Word and Excel. So get in there, play around a little bit, and if you want to help with it, just reach out and give us a call. Let's have a chat about it. I know, like we looked at one, like trying to see if we can do an alternative with using bookings, things like that. the options are limitless and the tools are there. And, I see a common trend. There's kind of a common trend in general in the industry where, we go out and we get these tools. You know, whether you're a medical practice or a retail shop, whatever it may be, you get this tool that solves a problem. It turns out you may be able to consolidate that tool with four other tools you're using, but you don't really know unless you actually dig into what all the apps and the features and the functionality is. And then also too, keep that in mind when you're looking at new tools. Going, okay, all right, so here's what we do now. Here's what we use now. So, all right, so if we bring this application on, okay, does this add anything that could remove away from those to make things easier to consolidate, or is this going to add more steps to this, or where can we do that? And then two, also, working to integrate those things. I recommend using Flow with Microsoft Automate. That is a phenomenal tool. Even simple like a DIY method, you go out there and play around with Zapier. I love Zapier. Zapier's awesome and it's great, especially if you're like just kind of getting started and maybe you're trying to see what they can do. But obviously, if you do need more advanced help or you want to get into using Power Automate Flow, reach out. Just give us a call. Shoot us an email. Let's talk about it. Let's see what we can come up with. The options are out there. AI, automation. This is these super big buzzwords, and they're going to keep buzzing. And especially, I mean, when we look at costs increasing around us, the cost of living, things like that. It's we need to lean on these things and look at these options and see what we can come up with to help maybe reduce some of that overhead. But we don't know if we shy away from it. So I recommend get out there. Look at and kind of see what you're doing now in the day to day. And give us a call. Let's have a conversation about it. Let's see if we could find some solutions and get you in the right direction. Or if not, reach out to your MSP or IT provider you work with now if you have one. If they're a good one, then they're going to be able to help you and assist you and help point you in the right direction. Now, if they're still saying, hey, we need to have that server in the closet and, you should go get your notebook out, then it might be time to kindly let them go and find yourself a new provider that is future focused and going towards where the world is essentially heading, where business is heading. As the world keeps spinning around us. I'm thinking the other day. It's so interesting if you take a step back and you think about it. So a lot of the generation that has been basically growing with this technology over the years. Those that started in those in the 80s babies, the 90s babies, that started getting this stuff kind of in their households and in their hands early on in the days versus now. We got to remember that, yes, the stuff's there, but there's so much power behind it. There's so much we can do with it, and there's a learning curve to it. And we can't just expect, it to be like, a remote for a TV. We pull it out of the box, we put batteries in it, we point, shoot, we hit the power button, right? No, unfortunately, with this technology, there's work that's got to be done. It's got to be learned. It's got to be kind of understood a little bit. What happens causes reactions. It's quite interesting looking at it from an outside perspective, because this is something, yeah, I play with tech all day long. Absolutely. I'm still a human being at the end of the day. I mean, I know I go home and I'm like burnt out over which streaming service I'm going to use. And it does become tough. And then that's where we circle back, and this where this is going, and then getting back into that. Okay, how can we consolidate things? How can we do to make life easier, and be thinking about those things moving forward? And especially then, my favorite too is when we go talk about, we're talking about that file management earlier and that file structure. Making sure that we're keeping things kind of together in one spot. I know all these years we've been used to saving stuff to our desktop, because that's our desktop. That's where it's at. And I can't tell you the number of people I ask, show me your documents folder. And they look at me like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, your documents folder. And I say, well, I've got all my stuff here. I'm like, that's your desktop. And I say, okay, hit that little file folder icon. So that little orange icon that's been on your computer since at least Windows XP. And go to that, and then, okay, all right. So, and then in there you see, okay, so we've got documents, we got desktop, we've got downloads, You may have your OneDrive on there, or you may have your SharePoint sites on there. And but taking that extra mile, that extra minute to actually learn and understand, and encouraging, your team to take a look and understand it. Yes, at the core, my job is to come in here and I type in maybe an Excel sheet or whatever, that fill that out, and I talk to the phone and answer customers and things like that. But you're using a tool, and you kind of got to know how that tool works. Think of it like a car, right? Okay, so you get in your car. I mean, obviously, the gas pedal's the gas, the brake's the brake, or at least hopefully you do. All right, and then what's that? What's that red light mean? Oh, that's your check engine light. Okay, so what's that tell you? That tells you there's a warning, right? Okay, do you know how to put oil in your vehicle? Do you know how to change a tire? Do you know how to put the air in your tire? And a lot of those basic concepts, whether it's a vehicle or maybe it's, you like to do woodworking or something like that, whatever your hobby is that you may know a lot about, and and you understand the tools in that, but you also need to learn and understand the full tools within your system. And when you do that, and when you start working on educating yourself on that and getting beyond that barrier of, I just need to be able to check my email, okay, so how do you send that email? How do you filter your emails? How do you sort your emails? There's so much functionality and with that that can be used to make your life better. And then also too, on that note with the email, Outlook Classic is getting to an end of life. So that is the Outlook that you are familiar with, that Outlook that you have been using for the last 20 something years. It is finally getting to it is end of life stage, and it's end of support stage. Microsoft is working on phasing that out, and everything is going to move to Outlook New. And I know it's new, it's flashy, and it's scary, it's a little different, but I promise you, I assure you, it is actually super easy. And one example of this, so we had an instance where we had to do forwarding of emails. We wanted to be able to do that, and we wanted to be able to see emails because we had a client with somebody that was out of the office, right? And they need to be able to monitor this. So we, when we broke through that, when we went through that, it was a 4-step process with Outlook Classic for them to be able to make sure they have that mailbox on there and do what they need to do. And then it was a repeat of about 3 steps to get it out of there. With Outlook New, that process is 2 steps, cut in half. And that's the world we're heading to. And I know it's scary. Change is rough. Nobody likes change. I know I'm a year older this year. Change is, but with change comes great things. And the technology is getting more intuitive. And we want to make your life better. So let's work towards embracing that change and working to ensure that we are, doing what we can to help ourselves with this technology as it just continues to change and change. So yeah, so thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening to the rambles of a mad IT guy. And yeah, have a great day. This has been another episode of Ross's Corner. And if you need any IT support, need any help, we serve businesses across northern Michigan, and we can serve businesses outside of Michigan. Just give us a call at 844-959-5040 or visit us on the web at ntsmanaged.com. Thank you, and have a great day for watching.